No tights were harmed in the making of this show, and thanks to a signed petition, neither was Clark Kent. In Smallville, the untold truths behind Superman are more than you'd expect. One thing audiences quickly noticed about Smallville is, despite being the story of a young Superman, you never see Clark wearing his iconic red and blue tights, and we only rarely see him fly. This was no accident. It's the result of a decision made by the showrunners to tell a more grounded story about the Man of Steel. Back when Smallville was still being pitched to the studio, its creators Alfred Gough and Miles Miller had a motto for what the show would not be about: no tights and no flights. Clark Kent would never wear the Superman suit or fly throughout the run of the show. Gough told the Washington Times, "It is difficult to really connect with someone wearing their underpants over their tights." In the same chat, Miller described the iconic red cape as cheesy. These two mandates set by Gough and Miller stayed in effect to varying degrees after they left the show. While Clark eventually starts flying, he just runs incredibly fast, and he doesn't put on the red and blue Superman costume until the end of the series finale, when Clark runs to the top of the Daily Planet building to change into his suit before rescuing a plane that's about to crash. On its face, the grounded, realistic approach that Smallville takes to telling a superhero story without any costumes or overt displays of superpowers seems better suited to a character like Batman. This is no coincidence, since the original intention was to make a series about a young Bruce Wayne's journey to becoming Batman. In 1999, the Batman franchise was under the weather after the wildly negative reaction to Batman and Robin. That was when the scriptwriter Tim McCanless pitched the idea of a television series focusing on a young Bruce Wayne in the years before he becomes the Dark Knight. The studio responded positively to the idea, and a script was created for the pilot of the series. The episode sees Alfred Pennyworth narrating the events of the main plot, involving Bruce investigating his father's company for possible ties to the Gotham underworld. But then Warner Brothers started putting plans together to create a new, more serious film about the Caped Crusader, based on the classic Batman Year One comic series. Since Warner Brothers didn't want the movie to compete with the show, the base concept for the latter was retooled into an origin story for Superman instead.
There are times when I think you don't know me at all.
The biggest wildcard with regards to the success of Smallville was the casting of Clark Kent. Superman is one of the most instantly recognizable pop culture icons around the globe, and the series needed to find someone who would be able to embody the legend and still carve out his own identity as teenage Superman. After a lot of auditions, the creators of Smallville zeroed in on the then unknown actor Tom Welling. While Welling had some big shoes to fill when it came to playing such an iconic character, the actor decided to strike out his own path. He told the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, "I actually made the choice when preparing for this role not to do research on anything else that has been done with this character, to really just take it from a fresh standpoint and create its own image." In another interview with Teen Mag, Welling admitted that he did not read a lot of Superman comics growing up. For these reasons, Welling entered into the role of Clark Kent without a lot of the cultural baggage associated with Superman and his fandom, and was able to create a fresh take for a new generation of fans. Smallville almost didn't feature Tom Welling as Clark Kent, since he actually turned down the role when he was initially asked to read for it. He told The Hollywood Reporter, "This show Smallville came along, and they weren't releasing the script. They just wanted me to audition. My manager at the time says that either means they don't have a script or it's not very good. We turned it down." While the actor was unwilling to audition without a script, the showrunners thought he had the potential to play a really compelling Clark Kent. Finally, Welling was allowed to read the script after signing a non-disclosure agreement. That's when the actor realized that the show was not about a superhero running around in tights, but a high school kid trying to discover himself. That's what convinced Welling to take on the role, despite his initial misgivings.
I wasn't even wearing red or blue.
What made Smallville particularly exciting for DC fans was that the show made liberal use of characters from the comics outside of Superman's personal mythology. Over the course of the show, Green Arrow, Zatanna, Impulse, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and various other superheroes swing into the fray. Batman and Wonder Woman were out of bounds though, as there were plans for their own movies and TV shows. Oliver Queen proved a big hit with fans after a disappointing effort to launch Justin Hartley as his era's Arthur Curry with an infamous failed pilot for an Aquaman series. The minds behind Smallville brought Hartley into the universe as the Green Arrow, rich, handsome, charming, and highly skilled at hand-to-hand combat. Oliver more or less takes the place of Batman on Smallville. Green Arrow was such a breakout character that there were talks of him getting his own show. Speaking on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast, Hartley said they wanted to do a spin-off called Metropolis or something like that. I heard whispers of that. It was Lois and Oliver in Metropolis, and whatever that was. Smallville might have its critics among the DC fandom, but it's hard to argue against the series' iteration of Lex Luthor. Michael Rosenbaum played a very different version of the quintessential supervillain than the one typically seen in the comics. This Lex grows up with Clark in Smallville and considers the last son of Krypton his brother from another mother until discovering his secret. Witty, calculating, and effortlessly charismatic, Rosenbaum's Lex is one of the best depictions of the character in any live-action film or series, and it seems the actor did a little bit of method acting by embodying his character when the cameras weren't rolling. Rosenbaum told the Smallville yearbook, "I went into the auditions and just took over. I felt really confident because I had nothing to lose." Rosenbaum recalled passing a message to the producers of the show, asking what exactly they wanted the actor for Lex to bring to the table. Based on the studio notes, Rosenbaum circled out the parts of the audition script where he would be alternatively funny, brooding, and menacing. After the producers asked Rosenbaum to come back for another screen test, he unleashed Lex's classic arrogance and told the studio that he would not audition again because the first time went so spectacularly. The gambit worked, and Rosenbaum was soon hired.
I promise I'm not a criminal mastermind.
Years before Supergirl got her own show in the Arrowverse, she was a big part of Smallville, played by actress Lara Vandervoort. This version of Supergirl was Clark Kent's Kryptonian cousin, named Kara Zor-El, and appears regularly throughout Season 7. At first, Kara is depicted as an antagonistic force due to her alien nature, but eventually she is influenced by her cousin's human values and becomes a hero at his side. As is an all-too-common issue for female characters in the action fantasy genre, the decision-makers behind Smallville put Vandervoort in outfits some might describe as needlessly skimpy. For her part, Vandervoort detested wearing the costumes picked out for Kara. At a New York Comic-Con panel, Vandervoort said, "I did ask them to burn the wardrobe when I was done with the show. I would have personally liked to have done it." When Smallville came onto the scene, the most famous depiction of Superman was without a question that of the late Christopher Reeve. Therefore, it was inevitable that Tom Welling and Smallville, by extension, would be held up to the standards set by Reeves' Superman films. Fortunately, fans saw Reeve give his blessings to the show when he appeared on it in a brief supporting role as Virgil Swan. Not only did Reeve give his seal of approval to Smallville, but he was impressed enough with Welling's portrayal of Clark to express a wish to see the actor play Superman in a movie. Speaking on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast, Welling said, "I remember in the end he says to me, 'I'm really glad they chose you to be the next Superman.' I was like, well, they didn't. That's when Brandon Routh had gotten the role in Superman Returns. And he said, well, they should have."
Bad vibrations?
Smallville has a lot of important characters, but at the end of the day, the most important character in the entire show was Tom Welling's Clark Kent. From the first episode to the series finale, Welling holds the narrative of the entire show together and is present in almost every major scene. This meant that the actor was under a huge amount of pressure while making the show. Welling worked long hours on the series and was left exhausted by the end of each shooting day. The cast of Smallville was so worried about Welling's health that they rallied together to sign a petition demanding that the studio assign him a driver so he wouldn't have to drive himself home after work every day. Speaking on his Inside of You podcast, Michael Rosenbaum told Tom Welling, "All of us are driving to a location at 4:30 a.m. with one eye open, and you're in every scene. I think it got to a point where we all signed a letter for you because we're like, you're going to kill Superman." Welling also recalled the incident and revealed that the rest of the cast waived their rights to have a personal driver provided by the studio just so Welling could get one. While Smallville is rightly praised for its acting and providing a grounded story for the Man of Steel, the show was also a trendsetter when it came to special effects on TV. Until the late 90s, good special effects were considered the domain of big-budget action movies, while TV special effects were generally considered cheap and cheesy. In order to make Smallville work, its creators had to pull off something much more complicated than simply using lots of CGI. Each of Clark Kent's superpowers needed to be shown in different ways, and the production had to figure out the logistics of it all. Tom Welling told The Hollywood Reporter how he ran on a treadmill on the back of a Ford pickup truck to simulate super speed as an example. These lessons and techniques provided an early blueprint for how the Arrowverse would tackle similar issues when it came to superpowers on a television budget. Ironically, when Smallville ran for 10 seasons, it still feels like it only scratched the surface of the stories it could tell. Fans clamored to find out what happened to the characters of the show after the season finale, and the answer came in the form of a spin-off comic series that acts as an 11th season of Smallville. In the comics, Clark has spent more than half a year as Superman, while still keeping in touch with his friends from Kansas. Perhaps the biggest advantage the comic series has over the show is that it allows Batman and Wonder Woman to finally become part of the Smallville canon. The saga of Tom Welling's Clark Kent doesn't end there though. In 2019, Welling reprised his role as Clark Kent for the CW's mega crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which also saw Erica Durantzis' Lois Lane return. The actor also announced that he is working together with Michael Rosenbaum to launch a Smallville animated series for a new generation of fans. The plan is to get as many of the original cast members as possible to come back to voice their characters for this new show.